You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. A big weekend for LSU football as Brian Kelly and his staff really starting to churn with this 2023 recruiting class, and they landed a commitment from speedy wide receiver Kyle Parker out of Texas. He's a 3-star, and look, candidly, if you're an LSU fan and you're looking at commitments, the first thing that we all inherently do, because most of us are not deeply rooted in recruiting culture. Like most of us aren't sitting there watching Kyle Parker film, and we don't know, you probably never even heard that kid's name before he committed. Like, you know, the upper crust, if you know an Arch Manning, a Dante Moore, something like that. Kyle Parker, probably not a name you know, which is fine. So if you're like me, the first thing you do is go, all right, let's go look at the measurables and his star ranking. Well, he's a 3-star, and he's 5'10", 175. So you look at that, and you probably think, oh, man, it's a little bit of a reach. Why would they go for that? And there's one very obvious reason when you dig a little deeper. Kid ran a 10.89 in the 100-meter dash. I mean, that is world-class track speed at 18 years old. So, yeah, it's interesting to me because of how LSU's receiver recruitment has evolved over the years. You know, when Les Miles, early in his time at LSU, was going after just speedy, talented, athletic guys. It kind of evolved into Ruben Randall, Jarvis Odell. But in 2012, remember this clearly, 2012, Texas A&M came in the league, and they had Mike Evans, and they had these big 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" receivers that were big-bodied dudes that were just hard to deal with. And if you remember, LSU went through this little period where Les was just recruiting big dudes. It was D. Anderson, 6'6", Jazz Ferguson, 6'6", Stephon Sullivan, 6'5". You know what I'm talking about? Like that. It's like if you weren't 6'4", don't even apply. Like just leave your card at the door. We'll call you, sort of thing. And they just didn't experience great success with that approach. And you saw a shift again. If you had a big dude like Terrace Marshall, who was a 5-star, of course you're going to recruit him. 6'4", I mean, a huge guy, 6'3", 6'4". But you saw the best receivers, even a Russell Gage, right, who was 6 foot tall. But you saw Jamar Chase, who was 6 foot tall. Now Kayshon Boutte, 6 foot tall. They shifted from the big, strong, physical receiver to the more athletic dude that could jump. And so when I look at Kyle Parker and I see 5'10", 175, I don't necessarily think the lack of size is a detriment. I think, okay, where's the benefit in his game? I think, okay, to bring it local, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, when he was at Oregon State, won the Biletnikoff as the best receiver in college football. What's the thing that Brandon Cooks has been able to do his entire professional career that's allowed him to stand out and be a game breaker? His speed, his ability to get open down the field. Deshaun Jackson, 5'10". Tyreek Hill, 5'10". What do they all have in common? Aside from being smaller receivers, they have game-breaking speed. So that's very likely what you're getting here. The other thing, and I'm going to be interested because I just don't know the answer to this. None of us really know the answer to this question. It's why when you have a new coaching staff, it's always interesting to watch it evolve and see how it plays out. We don't really know what Brian Kelly and vis-a-vis Mike Denbrock are going to want. I can point out receivers from Brian Kelly's time at Notre Dame that don't look anything like Kyle Parker. But we also know that they've really made use of the tight end there over the years, and they've had more shifty, athletic running backs that could catch the ball as receivers. So we're going to learn together this season and into the future what it is, what the mold is that Brian Kelly wants. I mean, it's like I remember when Les was recruiting running backs and then into the Ogeron era, Les wanted Jacob Hester, Jeremy Hill, Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, big, strong, physical, 220-pound running backs that had game-breaking speed but could also be physical between the tackles. That's why when LSU recruited Clyde, I said often, like, and I saw every game Clyde play. I called all of Clyde's games in high school. I said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be an amazing SEC back, just not at LSU. He wasn't the guy that was the dot-the-I 230-pound running back that Geis and Fournette were. His skill set was different. Well, what happened? The offense evolved. And Clyde was so dynamic as a receiver that in the Burrow year, he took massive advantage of that. And then could also, when you'd spread things out, run between the tackles. So much of it's about fit in the system. So you can look for a skill set, but you also have to look at what the coach wants. And we just don't know what Brian Kelly is going to do here. And yes, we could very easily look at a sample size of a decade at Notre Dame and say, well, that's what he's going to do. But I think we also have to realize something we've all talked about since the day he was hired, which is Brian Kelly is going to be able to recruit a different caliber athlete here than he could at Notre Dame. He's going to be able to recruit Odell Beckham to LSU. You're never getting Odell Beckham to Notre Dame. There have been very good players at Notre Dame over the time that Brian Kelly was there, but mostly what we saw from his highest drafted players were offensive linemen and tight ends. That's where regionally he could get really big Midwestern offensive linemen, develop them, and then same with pass-catching tight ends. But the skill guys aren't what Notre Dame produced, largely. He's going to be able to get those guys here, so how does that evolve what he wants to do offensively? I think a guy like Kyle Parker, although just a 3-star, is a guy that it makes sense what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get the guy that can hit the home run. It's also interesting, and sometimes this is just a product of recruiting. Kyle Parker had very few offers. He ran a 10.89 and instantly Texas, Louisville, Penn State, Arkansas, Mississippi State all jumped into the fray along with LSU. So it's probably a situation where today he's a 3-star, but now that he's committed to LSU and with more offers likely to come, you're probably going to see that star ranking elevate into next year. It's the Tyrann Mathieu syndrome, where Tyrann was a small, undersized defensive back, wasn't highly recruited. He camped at LSU. They got him to commit. And once he was committed to LSU, throughout the course of his senior season, he went from a 2-star to a 4-star. So I'm not going to marry myself to the star ranking with Kyle Parker. I'm going to look at the one thing that he does at a world-class level, which is speed. Now, how will Brian Kelly and the staff use that world-class speed will be interesting. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.